Trying to explain boss fights in less than a minute is more challenging than you think. Let's see if I can do it. Really quick. Nokhud Offensive during all of beta testing was an absolute nightmare, so I only have a small amount of footage to actually use, so I apologize in advance. Oh, and you're gonna hate this place. Feel free to use the timeline down below to jump to whichever boss you are interested in seeing. Also be sure to hit that like button if you end up enjoying this video. Let's dive in. To activate Granyth, you and your group will need to clear the trash around all 3 of the ballistas, also referred to as Dragon Killer Lances. Once Granyth lands, the encounter can begin. The idea of this fight is to use the ballistas to prevent Granyth from casting Eruption. You will do this by interacting with the different Dragon Killer's lance, located around the field. You can tell which one is active by simply looking for the little circle timer icon thingy. Ranged DPS, or the most able player, should keep an eye on this and interact with it as soon as it's available to be casted. Throughout the fight, members of the Nokhud clan will attempt to sabotage and dismantle the Dragon Killer lances. These need to be killed and or CC'd at all costs. If they manage to dismantle your active lance, you will most likely perish to the next eruption cast. Every time you cast the lance, Granyth will be stunned and take 5% of his max health in damage, hence, this becomes more of an ad control fight than anything. I don't think this took a full minute, but I do have an important note. The ads will always spawn directly across the room from the active lance, so you can use this knowledge to pre-position yourself properly to be able to land CCs and damage. Similar to Granyth, in order to spawn the Raging Tempest, you need to kill all 4 totems around the encounter space. Those are indicated by yellow dots on your minimap. During the encounter, the Tempest will expel uncontrollable energy. There are a few ways to deal with this mechanic. The first way to expunge the orbs is by hitting them with the Lightning Strike, which is a large AoE debuff that does damage to every player. This will then cause all hit orbs to erupt. The remaining orbs will need to be soaked by players. While it will deal minor damage, it will also grant a debuff that increases your healing and damage done by 5%. This can also be stacked up to 10 times. You can optimize this buff by soaking each orb periodically to maintain the debuff. This might be important for both damage dealers and healers to be able to get through the second phase of the fight. During phase 2, healers be paying attention to the massive amount of incoming group damage your entire party will take. After the storm subsides, it's just rinse and repeat. Oh, and lastly, tanks, just be in melee range. If you move out of melee range, the boss will hit you with large amounts of nature damage. At this point, I don't even care if it takes more than a minute to explain this fight. The first thing you need to know as a tank for Teera and Maruuk is that they have a buff called Ancestral Bond. When these bosses aren't tanked together, they will deal more damage, which will put a lot of pressure on you and your party. Throughout the fight, Maruuk will melee the tank and Teera will randomly shoot members of your group. Healers, just be aware of the spot healing and help your allies recover when needed. Whenever Teera casts Gale Force, try to move away from your other group members. Upon expiration of this debuff, each player will send out 4 tornadoes from their location. You should try to spread out if possible. The tornadoes will eventually return to their location. There is also a strat where all of your group members can stack to keep these more under control, but that might be reserved for pre-made groups. Occasionally throughout the fight, Maruuk will also cast Frightful Roar, and as the name might suggest, just don't be in the circle or you'll get feared. To make the fight even more chaotic, Teera is going to randomly jump around the room using Spirit Leap. Tanks, just be sure to pull Maruuk along. The most brutal overlap in this fight is when Maruuk and Teera will cast their signature abilities. Teera will cast Guardian Winds, pushing players away from her position. Range kicks are perfect for this, or melee with the speed boost. Kick this immediately to make dodging Maruuk's Earth Splitter much easier. Earth Splitter will target random members of your party, sending out shockwaves that leave void zones. Do not get hit by these or stand in them. During beta testing, getting hit also gave you a movement speed debuff, which can make staying on the bosses really difficult. After enough headache, these bosses will finally fall. Be sure to take an ibuprofen before heading towards Balakar. Balakar Khan is a 2-phase boss encounter with an intermission. During the first phase, tanks be aware of his dual strikes cast. It's a nasty tank buster with a bleed effect. He will then target a random group member with Iron Spear, which will cause moderate damage and knock any player caught within the circle back. Just be sure to move out with this debuff. Lastly, just avoid the Stampede, which is an unavoidable frontal charge. Enjoy chasing him down, melee DPS. Once Balakar hits 60% health, intermission will begin. Make sure your group kicks and groups up all the Stormcasters. Just as a side note, be careful of aggro here. It's pretty annoying as a tank to pick up threat. Kick every cast that you can. Once these ads are defeated, phase 2 will start. All of his abilities are now empowered, as well as lightning strikes will now spawn randomly. This has also turned his tank buster from physical damage to nature damage, so tanks need to be extra careful in this phase. And I'm sorry, Brewmaster mains, this phase sucks. His Iron Star cast is also now turned into Static Spear, which will now grip all party members to its location. This will immediately be followed by a charge, just be sure to dodge this. As long as your tank can live and your group can do a little jig, Balakar should fall, and the Nokhud Offensive clan will retreat. I think. I don't really know lore. I've really been liking these shorter videos, and this one actually wraps up the series. I hope you guys are finding them useful. Keep an eye out for my full-length guides and walkthroughs in the near future by hitting that subscribe button. Real talk though, this dungeon sucks, and I hope they make changes before live season starts. It was brutal testing this dungeon on beta, and I don't know how many players who are going to truly enjoy this place. As always, huge shout out to my dope-ass Patreons who allow me to make guides like these. Without them, these wouldn't exist, so thank you. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.